Obviously, the point of Exo Coco is that we're trying to design boards through a female perspective, but the end goal with it is that it's just an innovative brand that guys, any surfer can ride. So a lot of guys actually ride the Exo boards too, smaller surfers.
Aloha, this is Dave from Hawaiian South Shore. We're here with the man behind Album Surfboard, and as you know, we got the Coco Ho surfboards now, so we're excited to interview him, and he's going to tell us how he started surfing, how he got into shaping, and then how Album started. I want to know that story real quick first, but yeah, introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Matt Parker here in San Clemente at our showroom today. And yeah, just jumped out of the bay. Actually, was just shaping a new board for Victor Bernardo, and happy to jump on and chat with you, meet with you.
Yeah. So, when did you start? How did you get into surfing? And, how did you get into shaping?
Yeah, I grew up in Southern California in Orange County. I grew up in Orange, California, which it's a little bit inland. So it's like I grew up like probably 12, 15 miles inland from the coast. And I grew up skateboarding, always had a fascination with surfing as a little kid, but didn't really start surfing till I was probably 12. Used to go to the beach all the time when we were kids and boogie board and all that stuff, but didn't really start surfing till I was in middle school. And back then it was like, because I wasn't there every day at the beach, it was like this, I had a huge fascination with it. It was like this mystical, magical thing that I couldn't do all the time that I was fascinated with. And yeah, so I just took off from there and took to it right away. I always loved to skate and snowboard and do all these other stuff too, but surfing was always the first love and the thing I was into the most.
So, what was your very first, like, real true surfboard that you got? And what brand?
Yeah, it was a Chuck Dent.
Oh,
So he's like this old legend that from Huntington Beach area, had an old shop in Huntington, and it was like I think my parents got it at a swap meet, and it was like a Christmas gift when I was 12, and that was my first board. It was like a 1980s style thrusters. This was probably like 1988,
uh-huh.
and it was like a real flat deck, down rail, gloss and polish, glass on fins, 6'4", pretty meaty shortboard. And I had that board for probably till I was in high school. So that was like
Wow.
my only board.
Yeah.
Figured out how to surf and learn on it and rode it no matter what the conditions were, if it was 1 foot or 6 foot. And
You grew into it.
yeah, but I was funny because I loved it. So I was so fascinated by it. I knew it was the only board I had. So I would take really good care of it, but I would always be kind of like sanding it and painting it, trying to make it look like a new board, as it aged over time. Do the full deck traction like the 80s and then take it off and then sand it down and then paint it and make it look like a new board. So it's
Do you
fun.
still have that board?
No, I wish. I wish I
How
did.
did you get into shaping?
I was going to my background is in design. So as I kind of grew up, I was very much into art and painting. And the way I could apply that to like a career in life was through graphic design. So I was going to school for graphic design. And when you're going through design school, you're doing a lot of foundational art classes, sculpture and drawing and all this stuff. And I just was like, I should just try to shape a surfboard. I was just in the mode of using my hands at school and just kind of experimenting and playing around with different artistic side shoots. And so I got a blank and I got like the most rudimentary tools and shaped one in our friend's backyard. And I was like, oh, it actually kind of resembled the first board I owned, to be honest.
Oh,
This was in probably the year 2000, so like 24 years ago, 25 years ago. And it was kind of like an 80s style thruster. I did glass on fins on it and
you
surfed it.
glassed it yourself?
No,
Oh.
no, I was like, shaping was like enough of a thing I was biting off, just trying to wrap my head around that was enough. Get to a place, got it glassed. And yeah, it worked enough. It floated and I could catch waves on it. And I was like, oh, that was fun. But I instantly kind of wanted to improve it. So the first one I got back, I surfed it for like a month, took it to a shop, sold it on consignment, got the money, bought another blank, paid for another glass job. And then I just kind of rolled it from there.
Yeah. So did you take inspirations from other boards?
I was always interested in alternative boards. So I was always, I think probably what fueled it is back then in the 90s, late, you kind of go to a surf shop and a lot of the boards were kind of the same. A lot of pointed nose short boards, which I love riding those. But I was just kind of, uh, probably because of my mediocre ability, I was always looking for like a little innovation in a design that would be a better like, oh, this would, I'm surfing terrible waves in Southern California most of the time. I was like, oh, what could like just make surfing more fun? So I was always looking for unique kind of boards, and you couldn't really find them in shops. And so I think the idea of, as I was kind of experimenting in design school with all this kind of different art, I was like, I could make something without any rules and just make something weird and see if it works. So
Wow.
probably realistically in the last 10 years is when it's been full on. Probably since like 2013, 2014, where I've been doing it full time.
Yeah, well, I see your boards everywhere, so and they look sick.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. And how did you meet up with Coco Ho and how did this all happen? It's pretty
Yeah,
cool.
obviously, so huge fan of everyone's a fan of Coco and her surfing. She's amazing. She's just a great ambassador, just a great person to be around. And I had done a couple. Stab does these electric acid tests projects, which I really love to do because the idea is they pick a bunch of shapers and they have a surfer who doesn't necessarily surf alternative boards, and they say, go for it, just make something crazy for this surfer, and you get to just like go fully creative and just make something cool. And then the pro surfer surfs it and shoots it and kind of picks what the boards that they like. Ab said, hey, we're going to do this project with the Ho family, and it's going to be Coco, Mason, and Michael. And they wanted us to design one board and apply it to the three different surfers, like in their body shape and stuff. And for years, I've had in my mind and been kind of thinking about boards for women and how a lot of surfboards are not really designed for female surfers in both their anatomy and just different strength to weight ratios and just how they surf, And so it was it was a really cool opportunity to take one concept and make one for Mason, which would be fairly conventional, pro surfer male, and then take the same idea and what would I do differently for a female surfer if I took the same idea and fully did the rails different, did the dimensions different, changed up how I placed the fins, all this stuff. And so they wrote it, they went to Mexico, and she picked that board as the winner. And it was like the first time she'd really ridden a twin fin. And so it kind of expanded her mind about, whoa, like this is like, not only is this board an alternative board, it's actually a performance board. I actually have better feel. I'm going faster. I can do more dynamic turns. And so it really kind of opened her mind to just different types of boards to ride. And she was at a position in her career because she was like not necessarily interested in following the tour and doing contests anymore. And she just still at the peak of her ability, but just interested in doing different things. And so the subsequent couple of years, it was like a good way for me to kind of like R&D different concepts on boards for female surfers, like alternative boards for females. And so every couple months, I'd be designing and making a couple new shapes, and I just kind of send them to Coco, and she was just having a blast writing different stuff and experiencing riding these different boards. And then after like probably like a year and a half of kind of R&D and playing around, we kind of just got to the point like there's something here, there's something really important that's missing in the market. And these boards are a total performance advantage for you. You're having more fun than ever. We should really make a line. Let's launch a brand, see what design innovations come from this, and see like actually make something to fit that audience. And so it's been fun. It's been really cool. I've been shaping boards for, like we said, 25 years, but it's really fun to see things through kind of a different perspective and a different physical anatomy and how you would do it differently, and then see the innovations that come from that is pretty cool.
So for this twin fin board, like the Tryst that we have,
Mhm.
What's different compared to a normal traditional, twin fin? And what did you change about it to
Yeah.
make it easier to surf? Or is
Yeah,
it
Tryst would be like the exo coco version of a fish. And so to me, like a twin fin fish is like ultimate fun. That's like a quiver essential, summertime, smaller waves, something to go fast on, scoot around the lineup. And most fish dimensions are 5'6" to 5'10", 21 inches wide to 22 inches wide, 2.5, 2.3, 2.75 inches thick. They're big, wide, flat decked boards. And so I think most women have probably tried a fish, but never had like a true experience riding a fish that was really made for them. And so the idea with the Tryst is like take the same concept of what a fish is intended to be, but let's adjust the dimensions, so the widths are more reasonable. So they're more like 19 and a quarter to 19 and a half, 19 and three quarters, something like that. The apex of the rail, like where the furthest out point of the rail is a little bit closer to the water surface. So there it's a low apex. So the rail feels a little slopier and a little tighter radius where it contacts the water. So it makes a board that's a kind of a wider, planing, efficient planing hole. It makes it more reactive, more responsive. So you can actually turn it, surf it dynamically, but still get the feeling of what a fish is intended to be. It's just been kind of reworked and re-suited to fit a smaller foot, smaller weight, lighter weight rider. So
makes me think that guys that normally ride like, what they call shortboards now, a little bit,
yeah.
stubbier shortboards than what was in the 80s. When they get on this board, they'll probably feel like they're riding a shortboard.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It makes it just so like the rail shape is one of the most interesting breakthroughs with kind of designing these boards because there's volume there. The interesting thing is like Coco's boards that she's riding when she was on tour, she would ride a 5'5" to 5'6" short board that was like 23 liters. And her boards now that I make for her are, like her Tryst is like 4'8", and it's probably 25 and a half liters, 26 liters. It's just a different way of distributing volume. So the volume is kind of position in the board differently. So like catching waves is easier. So it's like the board fits their frame better. And it's easier to paddle, easier to duck dive because it's not too wide, but it actually has more volume. So it's a little bit more of a wave catcher and it's a little bit easier as far as like carrying speed. But it's more nimble and more responsive, even though it's a little bit step up in volume. So
Wow. Yeah, because when I looked at the boards, I was like, yeah, they look real. Some of them look have a lot of meat right underneath the chest.
yeah,
So is there on the wrist, is it a real flat tail rocker or is there a little bit of kick on it?
it's a pretty low tail rocker. It has a continuous curve on the bottom. It's just a relaxed curve.
Okay.
It's different than it comes from the idea of like how a fish is kind of meant to be. You want it to glide and carry speed, build up speed, carry speed through flat sections, through weak parts of the wave. But it still has continuous curve. So when you engage the rail, when you put it on rail, it drives through clean
Wow.
cars through the face, so.
And
Sometimes people will try to do like multi-stage rockers to try to cheat, but I think that ends up making the board feel skippy or weird or, so you want it to be smooth, like beautiful turns.
uh,
It has
so
concave to it too. Sometimes fishes don't have concave, but there is like kind of modern bottom contours. It has a concave under the front foot that blends into like a spiral V double concave to a V panel out the back. So it feels dynamic. So when you're up and planing, it feels reactive. You feel the water moving. You feel the board like moving water under your feet.
wow. So it's basically a fish with a shortboard bottom.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
exactly.
like a hot rod.
Yeah. The funny thing is too, like, yeah, like obviously the point of Exo Coco is that we're trying to design boards through a female perspective, but the end goal with it is that it's just an innovative brand that guys, any surfer can ride. So a lot of guys actually ride the XO boards too, smaller surfers, guys that are, there's so many guys that are like 5'5" to 5'8", and boards are kind of size the same for big guys. When there's boards, or there's a hard time finding boards for smaller guys, it's the same thing. And so the narrower widths, if they have like a size 8 or 9 men's foot, it really suits them, because it's just like it's a narrower width, but the volume is a little bit more than they're used to riding.
Yeah.
So they get the advantages.
Wow, that's interesting. So, and then the fin placement, is it in a normal fin placement on the Tryst, compared to a, did you move it in different positions or anything?
Yeah, fin placement on a twin fin is like the most critical aspect of making a twin fin work. So many people have had bad experiences with twin fins, because a lot of times they'll surf a board that's like designed by a shortboard guy who takes a shortboard and kind of just makes it a little shorter, a little wider, and sticks fins kind of in the wrong place. And so fin placement is critical to a board that you can push as hard as you want, but still feels freed up and fun, like you want a twin fin to be. So the fins are a little bit further back. They're a little like with the Tryst, they're a little bit off the rail, because they're meant to accommodate like a semi keel fin, which with the futures boxes, you're going to have some overhang off the back of the box with the keel fin, which kind of makes its way out to the rail. So they're meant for a smaller foot. So they're like, you can actually, your heel and your toe can kind of leverage the fin placement.
Oh, wow.
So you're not, sometimes if your foot's too small and the fin placement's too wide, you're almost like missing your gas pedal or your pivot point, because your foot is swimming between the fins. So they're kind of placed under where your foot should be, and in alignment with really the drive zone of the board is. And then the twin fin naturally frees itself up, so it turns easy. But it doesn't feel like you're going to slip out or you have to nurse a bottom turn. You can roll it over and push it as hard as you want.
Oh, wow.
Even in good waves.
Wow. No,
That's why we never do trailer boxes. We never do trailer boxes on twin fins, because I think you do that when you have bad fin placement. And you need
no, that makes sense.
So if you have proper placement with the rocker, there's no need for a trailer.
Oh.
And you have the right fins, obviously. You need to have the right fins for it.
Yeah. On that board, what would you suggest?
Yeah, we have a little mini keel with futures, an XO Coco like semi keel fin. That's probably the best one for it. It's a little bit of a swept back keel, kind of like a modern keel, in that it has a little bit of rake to it, but it definitely has enough base and enough surface area to kind of give you enough hold. Something like that. Even like you can ride it with an upright too, if you have kind of like you don't need a huge upright for a lighter surfer. So but yeah, kind of like a small semi keel that's the ideal version of it. In good waves, like a more of a pivoty upright fin will work too, where you want to really pivot and redirect. But in weaker surf, where you want to kind of get speed and projection, something with enough base on it gives you that drive and that projection down the line.
Yeah, we just got her fins, and it almost looks like the keel almost looks like the old K2 point, the 2.1s.
Yeah.
But it looks a little bit, it's close to that, but it's not the same thing.
Yeah, it's not as deep. It's like a little shorter, and it's like there's a little bit less on the back, but it's a similar concept to that semi keel.
Yeah. And then I seen her uprights. It kind of comes up and it has like a hook to it.
Yeah.
It was pretty interesting.
Yeah, it gives like when your rail's engaged and you're rolled over and you're driving, it really adds this extra zing and projection, and it lets you push as hard as you can. Yeah, I think that if you watch our guys and gals surfing the twins, the idea is surf them into any waves you can and push them as hard as you can and get the feeling of a twin fin.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be like, I tried this on like the really, like
you got to do it on some turns when it's like overhead.
Yeah, that's like, to me, it's like, oh, we're not like, we got to make it work in everything you'd want to paddle it into. So,
oh, interesting. Oh, right on. Thank you much, man. This is a really good talk, man. I appreciate your time. Yeah.
Well, thanks for taking the time to chat about it. I appreciate it.
Right on. Hey, thank you.
All right. I'll see ya.
Yeah.